Okay, we are live. Hello, everyone. I know it's fairly early. We're at 10 o'clock on a Saturday morning. This is Veronika and Juliette, and today we are discussing what are we discussing? Seasonal affective disorder. Now, before we start, I'm going to just share this from the page onto our personal pages. So bear with me. Now, before I do that, or in the process, whilst I'm doing it, Juliette, tell us a little bit. We just discussed it before we started. We always do, and there were some interesting things that we came across in terms of the seasonal affective disorder. So, can you explain what it is and what's your experience with seasonal affective disorder in your practice as a practitioner?
Well, my experience is it's predominantly experienced by women, actually, which is something that's not necessarily widely understood. And worldwide, looks like it's experienced by 1 in 20 people, which is actually quite a high figure. So it's something that is very common, although I suspect that people don't necessarily talk about it. And SAD can manifest in lots of different ways, but traditionally what you see is somebody's ability to concentrate going down, their levels of depression going up, their levels of fatigue, their quality of sleep going down, their need to sleep more, and just general disinterest, really, just to sort of disconnecting and not feeling like they want to necessarily participate. Some people will put that down to, oh, well, it's cold and it's dark and, you know, I don't feel very sociable. But for other people, it's much, much stronger, and it affects their quality of life.
Is it obviously, when we're talking about seasonal, is there a particular season or particular type of weather or environment where this presents itself?
Well, it's all to do with lack of light. So what's the date that the clocks, I can never remember this, that the clocks go forward and we lose more light, we have less light in the day. That's when you'll certainly see it kick in. A lot of people will feel it from September. They'll sort of feel themselves almost easing into this sensation, and then it really hits them later on in the year when that light goes. And I don't know about you, but when it's dark at 4 p.m, I don't enjoy winter. I'm not a natural winter lover, that's for sure. I know a lot of people do love the cold, but for me, I love the warmth and the light. So I would say it certainly affects me. I'm mindful of it myself.
And I agree with you on that. And when the winter comes, then I'm sure we're not the only ones. Otherwise we wouldn't be having this conversation. But definitely when the winter comes and when there's a lot of darkness, like it's 6 o'clock and you feel like it's 9 or 10. all you want to do is just be in bed and have a cup of tea and read a book or watch a nice movie or so.
Well, that's part of the problem, is we don't adapt our lifestyles to the change in weather. So we continue to live schedules like we would do in the spring and summer, and then we wonder why is it more difficult in the autumn and winter? Well, it's more difficult because that's not how our bodies have evolved to behave.
And that's how it used to be, right? We used to be living more in the traditional society, when we would be looking after the crops, for example, or things would happen with in line with the natural rhythm of nature. So,
well, it wasn't that long ago that people used to hibernate. They'd do their chores, they'd get up really early in the morning, particularly those that were tending to the land, and then it would be so cold that they'd all go and get into bed together to stay warm, and people would spend the predominant amount of time in winter sleeping, and that was 100 years ago. So things have changed enormously, and what has changed that is artificial light. It has been a blessing, but also a curse at the same time.
And so let's talk about light a little bit. We touched on it in a couple of previous interviews that we did. You're big proponent of, or you suggest that people look into the light and look into their environment and how it affects them. What is the most important factor about light and lighting in general that affects us? Why we should be paying attention to that?
What affects us, in my opinion, is blue spectrum light, and it is detrimental. So what we want is red spectrum light, and so these newfangled energy efficient light bulbs are just so bad for our health. They are the wrong spectrum of light. So on a day like today, where I have to have the lights on because it's so overcast in London, we have changed our bulbs for the old bulbs, the old school bulbs, and I noticed a huge difference. Other things that I do is that at night, I don't expose myself to blue light. So all of my devices have a filter on where it's ambient light. And so my retina is seeing light as I would do with the sun going down. But obviously, I'm not going to bed when the sun goes down in winter. I'm staying up way past that. So I need a way for my brain to still understand that it needs to produce melatonin, because this is another factor, is that people don't have the light outside, but they're being artificially lit inside, and then they've got all of these devices that they're using that is putting blue light directly into their eyes, and then they wonder why they can't sleep at night. So that's really important, and not to be exposed to bright blue light before you go to bed, and certainly hours before you go to bed.
I know that you suggest in your consultations, when I had my consultation with you, that was one of the things that you suggested, that look at blue light neutralizers or changing the setting on the computer, which I have done, and it has made a massive difference, and on my phone as well. And now if I even just want to show someone, like, look, I'm going to switch this off, it really hurts my eyes, and I don't know how I was actually able to look at it without, like, now I just see it and I'm thinking, how could I have lived like that?
It's incredible. But I tell you who it makes the most difference for. Parents, listen up. Get this blue light out of your kids' lives. The difference in their behavior, their sleep, their appetite, just everything, absolutely everything. They shouldn't be on devices all the time, but that's a topic for another day. But yeah, if you put these filters on, you'll notice a huge difference, because it affects children so much more than adults, because their systems are much more sensitive than ours, much more sensitive, and theirs even more so to light. And obviously to EMF too. So that's a whole rabbit hole on its own.
Yeah. So let's talk about melatonin a little bit. You touched on that. Can you uncover a little bit more why melatonin is important for us, what it is, and what we need to understand about it, how it plays out, and what its role is in our life?
So the best example to give with melatonin is, think about when you're jet lagged, when you travel from west to east and you feel like you don't know which way is up. That's because your circadian rhythm has been thrown out of balance, and it will mostly be melatonin and serotonin at the bottom of all of that, which is quite often why, if you're jet lagged, you also feel not just tired, but actually quite low. And people put it down to, it's because I've come home and it's the end of a holiday or whatever it may be. But it's actually a physiological process going on within your body. So melatonin is really important as a chemical that is at the basis of regulating our circadian rhythm. So if our circadian rhythm goes out, that's when we don't really know what to do with ourselves, what time to go to bed, when to eat, because our system is still trying to reinterpret the information. And that's coming from the gland in our brain, the hypothalamus, which basically interacts with our environment and gives us the information we need in order to process what time we're at, where we're at, what we're doing. So hence why when we travel through time zones, we're not really sure what we should be doing. Should be going to bed, staying up, eating, not eating. So those chemicals, when they get disrupted, can throw out lots of other things, including our digestive system.
What's the link between melatonin and digestive system?
Well, it's that loop between the fundamental loop between the brain and the gut. So if the brain is out of sync, then that will affect the guts. It will affect appetite. Some people can actually feel nauseous when they travel and go through those time zones, because they are that deeply affected by it. Our endocrine systems are just completely amazing, and they take in an enormous amount of information and obviously convert that to impulses within the body. So when those are out of whack, it can make a huge difference to how we function. And some people are much better at adapting to it because their endocrine systems are under less stress and they're much stronger, and other people find it very, very difficult.
I definitely know. I know someone who doesn't have any issues whatsoever with traveling through different time zones, which is amazing. I'm definitely not one of them. I want to mention this because you were laughing at it. I was just researching the SAT, and I read an article. I'm just gonna go through that in Telegraph, stating that seasonal affective disorder is probably a myth, a psychologist. And I would love to get your response to that.
I'm going to call fiction on that particular proposition. It's ignoring evidence, and it's ignoring symptomology, and yes, it is such a widespread. I am. It's such a widespread issue, and to say that it's a myth is just deeply offensive to the people that experience it, including myself, yourself. It's just rude, aside from anything, and completely lacking in facts. So, yeah, I think that article's more about feelings than it is facts, and I prefer to stick to the facts, which is that a change in someone's environment in terms of the amount of light that they're exposed to will affect their physiology. It is just a question of how much and how that manifests. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on that.
That was wonderful. Thank you. And what would be the natural solution that you would suggest, apart from, so you suggested the blue light filter? What else would you suggest that people do to feel better during the winter time, or during the time where there is not enough light around?
If people have the resources and someone suffers from this badly, or there's more than one person in the family that suffers from it, I can't encourage more investing in an infrared sauna. And that may sound horrendously expensive, but you can actually get, like, I've got a proper one that you sit in, but you can actually get little pod ones that
we do actually
get into.
Do offer them. That's interesting that you say that. Yeah.
So they are absolutely wonderful, and they also have lots of other enormous benefits, including there's research that's come out recently that infrared can help with weight loss and all sorts of other fantastic things. So you're scoring a number of bonus points by investing in that through the winter. My sauna is an absolute lifesaver, and it keeps me on the straight and narrow, as does nutrition. So again, you want to look at cutting down carbs, cutting down sugar. Those are not the things we should be eating in the winter. We should be focusing on things like sweet potatoes, leafy greens, definitely saturated fats. Again, not everyone can tolerate certain saturated fats. So most people can tolerate the animal-based ones, whereas many people, including myself, cannot tolerate the coconut-based ones, or avocado, for example. So it's about finding saturated fats that don't inflame you and consuming a lot of those. And bone broth is one of my go-tos as well. For all the glycine, the amino acids, the collagen, all of the things that the gut loves, the skin loves, the hair loves. People say to me all the time, like, is your hair fake? I get asked this ridiculous, and honestly, it is the collagen that keeps my hair really thick, really strong. It makes such a huge difference. It just nutrifies all of those amino acids, just nutrify the body. And so because SAD is founded in depression, what's the basis of depression? Well, it's always found in the gut. So any improvements to gut health would be beneficial. Eating fermented or pickled foods is quite difficult in winter because you want things that are warming. So stick to the spicy side of things. I would absolutely encourage turmeric in soups, chili in soups, if you can tolerate it. Anything that is warming.
Wonderful. So again, it's not just a matter of exposing ourselves to the right light, but again, and we're going to that every single time when we talk and when you talk and present, is the gut health connection and the sugar connection. So diet and dietary changes, and also being kind to ourselves, not trying to overwork ourselves and be stressed, because again, stress will have an effect on how our body are working.
Well, I'd actually say that people should try and think about investing in a winter schedule, so going to bed even an hour earlier than normal, and even if you get up earlier, because obviously it's lighter, much later now, so most people getting up for work at the normal time, it's dark, so they're not getting that light. So it's about making changes that exposes you to more light. So a really simple solution I say to clients is, okay, so take a packed lunch and go for a walk during your lunch hour. That's what I used to do when I worked in central London. I used to walk around Green Park because that was my only opportunity to get natural light. Because as I said, when I got up, it was dark, came home, it was dark. And that's what, 4 months that it's like that, 3.5 months. That's a long time. And of course, the body starts to naturally go into hibernation. You know, we're not that far removed from what bears get up to. All of us, if given the, you know, if you went into any organisation and started handing out duvets, people wouldn't hesitate to say, oh, I'd just love to have, you know, snuggle up in a nap. We need to acknowledge that we need different things in the winter. We need different foods and we need a different lifestyle approach, because we can't do the schedules that we do in spring and summer where we naturally have more energy. It's just it's putting too much taxation on the system, as it were. So I think that TLC, being kind to self, putting a movie on, just living life at a slower pace for the winter, and then you can look forward to the spring to gear up again.
And it's okay to slow down. That's the thing.
Yeah.
It is okay. Totally okay. So stop beating yourself up for it if you don't feel like being super productive over winter. It may be that it's just okay. And that's the way, you know, nature has intended for it to be, perhaps. So fantastic. Thank you so much, Juliette. Again, I'm saying that again. If you have any comments or if you have any questions in relation to what we've discussed today, please do leave us a message in the original video, if possible, under the original video. But anyhow, we will pick that up wherever it's shared. Also, share it with your friends, share it with your colleagues, share it with anyone who you think this information would benefit.
Or if anyone wants to make a suggestion for future broadcasts, we're more than happy to take that on and to discuss the topics of the day. And I love getting feedback on what aspects of our transmissions that people have enjoyed and what they'd like to hear more about.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Have a
Thank
beautiful
you.
day and weekend.
And you.
And we'll see you again soon. I think it would be next weekend.
Yeah, next Saturday.
And we'll do that again. Fantastic.
Perfect.
Bye.
Thanks, Veronika. Bye.